Ambassador Daniel Carter looked out through the small window of his ship as it approached Nexus Prime. The planet was massive, almost 3 times the size of Earth and covered in strange crystal formations that sparkled like diamonds in the light of its twin suns. After 40 years of diplomatic service, Carter had seen many worlds, but nothing quite like this. This was the heart of the Galactic Council, the center of power for 12 ancient alien species who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. "Ambassador will be docking in 30 minutes, said Captain Roy Barnes from the pilot's seat. Barnes was a good man, steady and reliable. Carter had specifically requested him for this mission because he needed someone he could trust completely. Carter nodded and adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform. Today would be the most important day in human history. For the first time ever, humanity had been invited to present their case for membership in the Galactic Council. It had taken decades of careful negotiation just to get this meeting. Earth's leaders had chosen Carter for this mission because of his reputation for patience and wisdom. Colonel Lisa Graham entered the passenger compartment, her military dress uniform crisp and clean. She was Carter's military liaison, a tough woman in her 40s who had served in 3 different conflicts. Her job was to observe and report back to Earth's military leaders about what she saw. "The Council's security forces are escorting us in," Graham said. 6 ships, all armed. They're not taking any chances. Dr. Alan Foster looked up from his datapad. He was the team's cultural expert, a thin man with gray hair who had spent years studying alien civilizations. "That's normal protocol for them. The Council has always been careful about security. They've survived this long by being suspicious of everyone." Carter smiled slightly. "Let's hope we can change their minds about us." The ship docked with a metallic clang that echoed through the hull. Carter could feel his heart beating faster. Everything humanity had worked for over the past 50 years had led to this moment. When humans had first developed faster-than-light travel, they had been shocked to discover that the galaxy was full of intelligent life. Most of it was controlled by the Galactic Council. The Council had been watching humanity for decades. They had observed Earth's wars, its pollution, its conflicts. They had seen humans spread to other worlds, sometimes fighting among themselves, sometimes working together. The Council had decided that humans were too dangerous and primitive to join their organization. But recently some Council members had begun to change their minds. The airlock hissed open, and Carter stepped onto the station. The artificial gravity felt strange, heavier than Earth normal. The air smelled different too, with a metallic taste that made his nose tingle. 2 aliens were waiting for them. One was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. The other looked like a walking tree, with bark-like skin and leaves growing from its shoulders. "Ambassador Carter," the blue-skinned alien said in perfect English. "I am Coordinator Zexhai of the Andorian Trade Federation. This is Speaker Thulvin of the Sovani Collective. We will escort you to the Council chambers." Carter bowed politely. "Thank you for receiving us. This is Colonel Graham and Dr. Foster from my team." They walked through long corridors filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Carter saw creatures that looked like giant insects, others that appeared to be made of living crystal, and some that defied description. Many of them stopped to stare at the humans. Carter could feel their curiosity, but also their suspicion. The Council chambers were enormous, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 seats were arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different species. At the center was a raised platform where Carter would make his presentation. The chamber was already full of aliens, hundreds of them in the viewing galleries. "The Council members are arriving," Dr. Foster whispered. "The tall crystalline beings are the Zephyrians. They're the oldest species in the Council and have the most influence. The floating jellyfish-like creatures are the Kethmori. They're telepathic and often serve as mediators." Carter watched as the Council members took their seats. Each one was different, representing millions of years of separate evolution. Some were beautiful, others were strange, and a few were frightening. But all of them were ancient, far older than human civilization. The largest seat was occupied by a being that looked like a living mountain of crystal. This was High Arbiter Velthara, the leader of the Zephyrians and the most powerful member of the council. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We welcome the human delegation to Nexus Prime," she said. "This is an unusual occurrence. In the past 5,000 years, only 3 species have been granted membership in our council. We have agreed to hear your petition, though many of us have concerns about your species." Carter stepped forward onto the platform. He had practiced this speech hundreds of times, but his mouth felt dry. "Honored council members, I am Daniel Carter, speaking on behalf of all humanity. We come before you not as conquerors or supplicants, but as a species ready to take its place in the galactic community." A creature that looked like a giant spider with too many eyes chittered something in its own language. The translation came through Carter's earpiece. "Your species has been at war with itself for its entire history. Why should we trust you with the peace of the galaxy?" Carter had expected this question. "It's true that humans have fought wars, but we have also shown the ability to learn, to grow, to change. We have ended slavery, we have worked to heal our planet, and we have united our species under one government. We believe that our experiences, both good and bad, have taught us the value of peace." Another council member, a being that looked like a floating brain surrounded by tentacles, spoke up. "Your expansion into space has been aggressive. You have established colonies on dozens of worlds without asking permission from the council." "We have colonized empty worlds," Carter replied. "We have been careful not to interfere with other species or claim territory that belongs to others. We seek only to give our people room to grow and prosper." The questions continued for hours. Carter answered each one carefully, trying to show that humanity was ready for the responsibilities of council membership. Colonel Graham and Dr. Foster provided support when needed, but this was Carter's show. As the session went on, Carter began to sense a change in the mood of the chamber. The questions were becoming more hostile, the tone more suspicious. Some council members seemed to be looking for reasons to reject humanity's petition rather than considering it fairly. Finally, High Arbiter Velthara called for a recess. "We will consider what we have heard today. The human delegation will remain on Nexus Prime while we deliberate. This session is adjourned." As the council members filed out, Carter felt a chill run down his spine. Something was wrong. The aliens' expressions, the way they had asked their questions, the hostility in their voices. It all suggested that this meeting was not going as planned. Colonel Graham moved close to him. "Sir, I don't like this. The way they're looking at us, it's like they've already made up their minds." Carter nodded grimly. "I'm afraid you might be right, Colonel. I think we may have walked into a trap." Ambassador Daniel Carter woke up in a cold metal cell. His head hurt badly, and his diplomatic uniform was torn and dirty. He tried to remember what had happened after the council meeting, but everything was blurry. The last thing he could recall was walking back to his quarters with Colonel Graham and Dr. Foster when armed aliens had surrounded them. The cell was small and dark, with no windows. A thin beam of light came from a crack in the ceiling. Carter could hear voices outside, speaking in languages he didn't understand. He tried to stand up, but his legs were shaky. Someone had given him some kind of drug that made him weak and confused. Hours passed before the cell door opened. 2 large aliens entered, followed by Coordinator Zexhi, the blue-skinned alien who had greeted them when they arrived. His 4 arms were folded across his chest, and his expression was cold. "Ambassador Carter," Zexhi said, "you are charged with making threats against the Galactic Council." Carter struggled to focus his thoughts. "Threats? I made no threats. I came here to seek peace between our peoples." "Your words yesterday were recorded and analyzed," Zexhi continued. "When you spoke of human determination and the right to self-determination, our telepathic council members detected hostile intentions in your mind. The Kethmori reported that you were thinking of war, of forcing the council to accept humanity through violence." "That's not true," Carter said, his voice getting stronger. I was thinking about our history, about how humans have always fought for their freedom. But I never intended to threaten anyone. Zexhi's expression didn't change. The council has made its decision. You will be tried under the ancient laws of purification. If found guilty, you will be cleansed by the sacred flame. Carter felt ice in his veins. He had studied the council's laws during his preparation for this mission. The ancient laws were thousands of years old, created when the council was first formed. They allowed the council to execute anyone they considered a threat to galactic peace. The sacred flame was a ritual burning that was supposed to purify dangerous thoughts and intentions. I demand to speak with my team, Carter said. I have the right to legal representation. Your rights are those we choose to give you, Zexhi replied. Your trial begins in 1 hour. The trial was held in a smaller chamber than the main council hall. Only 6 council members were present, including High Arbiter Velthara. Carter was brought in wearing chains that seemed to be made of the same crystal material as the Zephyrians. The chains felt cold against his skin and made it hard to move. Colonel Graham and Dr. Foster were in the viewing area, surrounded by armed guards. Graham's face was red with anger, while Foster looked pale and shocked. Carter tried to catch their eyes, but the guards pushed him forward to a small platform in the center of the room. High Arbiter Velthara's crystal body glowed with a soft blue light as she spoke. Daniel Carter of Earth, you stand accused of harboring hostile intentions toward the Galactic Council. How do you answer? I am innocent, Carter said clearly. I came here in peace, seeking friendship between our peoples. I have never threatened anyone. A floating jellyfish-like Kethmori moved closer. Its tentacles waved in the air as it spoke directly into Carter's mind. The voice was cold and alien, nothing like a human thought. We have looked into your mind, human. We see your species. History of violence. We see wars, genocide, destruction. We see your dreams of conquest, your desire to spread across the galaxy like a disease. Carter shook his head. Yes, humans have made mistakes, but we have also learned from them. We have grown, we have changed. We seek only to live in peace with other species. Your words say peace, the Kethmori replied, but your thoughts say war. When you spoke of human determination, you were thinking of your military forces. When you spoke of self-determination, you were thinking of taking what you want by force. I was thinking of our history, Carter protested, of how humans have always fought for their freedom when it was threatened. That doesn't mean I intended to threaten anyone here. Another council member, a creature that looked like a giant insect, clicked its mandibles. The human admits to thinking of war in our presence. This is clear evidence of hostile intent. Carter realized that the trial was a sham. The council had already decided his fate before he was even brought to the chamber. They had been looking for an excuse to reject humanity's petition, and his thoughts during the speech had given them what they needed. I see what this is, Carter said, standing as straight as he could despite the chains. You never intended to accept humanity into the council. You've been looking for a reason to refuse us, and now you think you've found one. High Arbiter Velthara's glow grew brighter. Your species is dangerous, human. You spread across space without permission, you fight among yourselves, and now you come before us with thoughts of war. We cannot allow such a species to join our council. Then why not simply refuse our petition? Carter asked. Why this mockery? Of a trial? Because, Velthara replied, we must send a message to all species who might consider following your example. The galaxy has been at peace for millennia under our guidance. We will not allow that peace to be threatened. The vote was quick and unanimous. Carter was found guilty of harboring hostile intentions and sentenced to death by the sacred flame. The sentence would be carried out immediately and broadcast throughout the galaxy as a warning to other species. Carter was taken to a large ceremonial chamber deep in the station. The room was filled with alien spectators, including representatives from dozens of species. In the center of the chamber was a raised platform with a strange device that looked like a metal flower with crystalline Petals. As Carter was led to the platform, he could see Colonel Graham and Dr. Foster in the crowd. Graham was shouting something, but the guards wouldn't let her get close. Foster was trying to record everything with a small device, probably hoping to get evidence back to Earth. "Any last words, human?" High Arbiter Velthara asked. Carter looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring at him. Some looked curious, others seemed afraid, and a few appeared to be enjoying the spectacle. He thought about his wife back on Earth, about the children he would never see again, about the future that humanity would now face without him. "I came here seeking peace," he said in a voice that carried throughout the chamber. "I leave you with a warning: humanity is not as weak as you think. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed other species. We have learned to work together when we face a common threat." He paused, looking directly at the crystal being who had sentenced him to death. "You have made a terrible mistake today. You could have had humanity as friends and allies. Instead, you have chosen to make us your enemies. My people will not forget this. They will not forgive this, and they will not let this go unpunished." High Arbiter Velthara's glow turned red. "Activate the sacred flame." The device in the center of the platform began to glow. Carter felt intense heat washing over him as the crystalline petals opened like a deadly flower. The pain was overwhelming, but he forced himself to remain standing. He would not give these aliens the satisfaction of seeing him fall. "Tell them," he called out to his team, his voice growing weaker as the flames consumed him. "Tell them we came in peace but died with honor. Tell them to remember Daniel Carter, and tell them to make these aliens pay for what they've done here today." The flames grew brighter, and Carter's voice was lost in the roar of the sacred flame. The broadcast was sent to every corner of the galaxy, showing the death of humanity's first ambassador to the stars. In the viewing area, Colonel Graham and Dr. Foster watched in horror as their leader died. Both of them knew that this moment would change everything. The Council had made their choice, and now humanity would make theirs. The galaxy would never be the same. President Rachel Stone stood in the Oval Office of the United Earth Federation building, watching the recorded footage of Ambassador Carter's execution for the 10th time. Each viewing made her anger burn hotter. The alien broadcast had reached Earth 3 days ago, and the entire planet had exploded in rage. Colonel Lisa Graham and Dr. Alan Foster sat across from her desk, both looking exhausted from their emergency trip back to Earth. They had escaped from Nexus Prime on the last human transport before the Council sealed off all human access to their space. Their ship had barely made it out alive. "Tell me again what happened in those final hours," President Stone said. Turning away from the screen, Colonel Graham's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. "After the execution, they gave us 6 hours to leave. The aliens were celebrating, Madam President. They were actually celebrating Carter's death. They thought they had taught humanity a lesson about knowing our place." Dr. Foster nodded grimly. "The Council members I spoke to seemed to believe that humans would simply accept this and stay away from their space. They have no idea what they've done." President Stone walked to the window overlooking the capital city. Even from here, she could see crowds of protesters in the streets. Every human colony, every space station, every settlement had reported the same thing. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before. "The emergency session with the Federation Council is in 1 hour," she said. "What's the military situation?" The door opened, and Admiral Jack Morrison entered the room. He was a tall man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. Behind him came General Kate Sullivan, the head of Earth's ground forces, and Dr. Marcus Webb, the Federation's chief scientist. "Madam President," Admiral Morrison said with a salute, "I've reviewed the footage from Nexus Prime, the Council's. Security forces are using technology that's about 20 years behind our current capabilities. They're overconfident because they think humans are still using the same weapons we had when they first observed us." General Sullivan placed a data pad on the President's desk. "Our ground forces are ready for immediate deployment. We have 2 million soldiers spread across 12 worlds, plus another million in reserves. The Council has made one critical mistake. They think humans are weak because we fight among ourselves. They don't understand that we fight because we're good at it. Dr. Webb adjusted his glasses nervously. The quantum weapons project is ready for field testing. We've also completed the new shield technology that can deflect their energy weapons. The Council's technology is advanced, but it's also very old. They haven't innovated in thousands of years because they haven't needed to. President Stone turned back to face them. How long before we can launch an attack? The fleet is already gathering at Mars base, Admiral Morrison replied. Captain Roy Barnes made it back from Nexus Prime with detailed scans of their ship designs and station layouts. We can be ready to move in 72 hours. What about the other human colonies? President Stone asked. Are they with us? Colonel. Graham smiled for the first time since Carter's death. Every single one, Madam President. New Terra, the Mars colonies, the asteroid mining stations, even the deep space explorers. They're all demanding action. Some of the outer colonies are already preparing their own attack fleets. President Stone nodded slowly. She had been hoping for unity, but the level of response had surprised even her. Humanity had been scattered across dozens of worlds, sometimes disagreeing on policies and trade agreements. But Carter's murder had brought them together like nothing else could have. There's something else, Dr. Foster said quietly. The Council's broadcast wasn't just sent to human space. It went to every species in the galaxy. Some of them are already sending secret messages to our embassies. What kind of messages? President Stone asked. Support? Dr. Foster replied. It seems the Council has been oppressing other species for centuries. Many of them have been waiting for someone strong enough to challenge the Council's authority. They see Carter's execution as proof that the Council fears losing power. Admiral Morrison leaned forward. Several species have offered to provide intelligence about Council military positions. The Drakvari in particular seem very interested in helping us. They've been trying to rebel against the Council for decades. President Stone felt a cold smile cross her face. The Council wanted to send a message to the galaxy. They succeeded, but not in the way they intended. An aide entered the room. Madam President, the Federation Council is ready for your address. President Stone straightened her jacket and walked toward the door. Gentlemen, Colonel Graham, Dr. Foster, you're with me. It's time to tell the representatives what we're going to do about this. The Federation Council chamber was packed with representatives from every human world and station. President Stone had never seen the chamber so full or so quiet. Usually, the representatives spent their time arguing about trade agreements and colonial rights. Today, they were all focused on one thing. President Stone took her place at the podium and looked out at the faces staring back at her. These people represented over 8 billion humans spread across 37 worlds. They had come together to decide humanity's response to the greatest crisis in their species' history. Fellow representatives, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 3 days ago, Ambassador Daniel Carter was murdered by the Galactic Council. His crime was representing humanity with dignity and courage. His punishment was death by burning, broadcast across the galaxy as a warning to any species that might dare to challenge the Council's authority. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. President Stone waited for the noise to die down before continuing. The Council believes that humans will accept this insult and retreat back to our little corner of the galaxy. They believe we will be grateful for whatever scraps of freedom they choose to allow us. They are wrong. She paused, letting her words sink in. I have consulted with our military leaders, our scientists, and our intelligence services. We have the capability to respond to this attack on humanity. The question before us today is simple. Do we allow Daniel Carter's murder to go unpunished, or do we show the galaxy what happens when someone kills a human ambassador? The vote was unanimous. Every single representative voted for war. President Stone had expected strong support, but she had thought at least a few colonies might vote for caution. Instead, humanity had spoken with one voice. The motion carries, President Stone announced. As of this moment, The United Earth Federation considers itself at war with the Galactic Council. We will not seek a limited conflict or a negotiated settlement. We will fight until the Council is destroyed and replaced with a government that respects the rights of all species. The chamber erupted in cheers. President Stone waited for quiet before delivering her final words. To the Council members watching this broadcast, I have a message. You could have had humanity as friends and allies. Instead, you chose to make us your enemies. Ambassador Carter warned you that this was a mistake. You are about to learn that. Daniel Carter was a diplomat, not a soldier. You have never seen what humans can do when we're really angry. She looked directly into the camera. You killed one of our diplomats in cold blood. Now you will face our military. You wanted to send a message to the galaxy about what happens to species that oppose you. We're going to send a message about what happens to species that murder humans. Admiral Morrison stepped forward. Fleet Admiral Morrison reporting, Madam President, the fleet is ready to depart on your orders. President Stone nodded. Admiral, you have authorization to begin offensive operations against Galactic Council forces. Show them what human determination really looks like. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, President Stone remained at the podium. She thought about Daniel Carter, about his wife and children, about the future he would never see. The Council had made their choice when they lit that flame. Now they would live with the consequences. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers. It was their refusal to accept defeat, their ability to unite when threatened, and their willingness to fight for their principles no matter the cost. The war would be long and bloody, but President Stone had no doubt about the outcome. The Council had awakened something they didn't understand, and now they would pay the price for their arrogance. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the stars streak past as his fleet moved through hyperspace toward the Kepler system. Behind him, 200 human warships followed in perfect formation. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, and it was heading straight for the Galactic Council's border defenses. Admiral, Captain Sam Mitchell reported from the tactical station, we're receiving final intelligence updates from the Drakmari contacts. Council forces at Kepler Station number approximately 50 ships, mostly older crystal vessels from the Zephyrian fleet. Morrison nodded grimly. The Drakmari had been more helpful than he had expected. Their hatred of the Council ran deep, and they had provided detailed information about Council military positions and weaknesses. It seemed that Daniel Carter's execution had created more enemies for the Council than they realized. What about their defensive capabilities? Morrison asked. Captain Beth Reynolds, commanding the escort destroyer UES Defiance, spoke up from the communications screen. According to our intelligence, they're using the same energy shields they've had for the past 1,000 years. Dr. Webb's quantum torpedoes should cut through them like paper. Morrison had served in the military for 30 years, but he had never felt as focused as he did now. Every human in the fleet was thinking about Ambassador Carter, about the way he had died, about the message they were about to send to the galaxy. The Council had wanted to show other species what happened when they challenged Council authority. Now humanity would show them what happened when they murdered human diplomats. All ships prepare to drop out of hyperspace, Morrison announced. Remember, we're not here to negotiate or make threats. We're here to destroy every Council ship in the system and take control of their station. No prisoners, no mercy. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Immediately, alarms began sounding as the Council forces detected the human ships. Morrison watched the tactical display as 50 alien vessels moved to intercept them. The Council ships were beautiful in their own way, made of living crystal that glowed with internal light, but they were about to become wreckage. Council fleet is hailing us, the communications officer reported. Put them through, Morrison said. A tall, crystalline being appeared on the main screen. Its voice sounded like wind through crystal caves. Human vessels, you are violating Council. Space, withdraw immediately or face destruction. Morrison stepped forward. I am Admiral Jack Morrison of the United Earth Federation. I'm here to deliver a message from humanity. You killed our ambassador. Now we're going to kill you. The alien's crystal body flared with angry light. Your species will pay for this aggression. The Council's justice is swift and final. Your Council's justice burned Daniel Carter alive. Morrison replied, now you get to experience human justice. He cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. All ships, engage at will. Show them what human determination looks like. The battle began with a massive barrage of quantum torpedoes from the human fleet. The new weapons had been developed in secret over the past 5 years, based on research that the Council had never seen. They tore through the alien energy shields like they weren't even there. Dr. Mitchell watched his tactical display in amazement. Admiral, their shields are completely ineffective against our weapons. It's like shooting at paper targets. The first wave of torpedoes destroyed 12 Council ships in the opening seconds. The alien vessels tried to return fire, but their energy weapons were deflected by the new human shield technology. Dr. Webb's team had analyzed the Council's weapons from the footage of Carter's execution and designed specific countermeasures. Launch. Fighters, Morrison ordered. Let's see how they handle close combat. Commander Tony Cruz led a squadron of human fighters toward the Council fleet. His ships were smaller and faster than anything the aliens had, designed for hit-and-run tactics that the Council had never encountered. The human fighters swarmed around the crystal ships like angry wasps, firing concentrated bursts that shattered the alien hulls. This is Cruz to all fighters, Tony's voice crackled over the radio. Their weapons can't track us. We're too fast and too small. Pick your targets and make every shot count. The Council ships tried to adapt, but their tactics were thousands of years old. They had been designed for formal battles between large fleets, not the chaotic, aggressive style of human warfare. The human fighters tore through their formations, destroying ship after ship. Lieutenant Commander Amy Parker coordinated the cyber warfare attack from her station aboard the Retribution. Her team had spent months studying Council communication systems, looking for weaknesses. Now they put that knowledge to work. Admiral, we're into their networks, Amy reported. Their security systems are ancient. We can disrupt their communications, their navigation, even their life support if needed. Do it, Morrison ordered. Give them a taste of human innovation. The cyber attack was devastating. Council ships suddenly found themselves unable to communicate with each other, their navigation systems failing, their weapons targeting systems offline. The human fleet pressed their advantage, destroying confused and isolated alien vessels. Captain Reynolds brought the Defiance in close to the Council flagship, a massive crystal ship that was trying to rally the remaining alien forces. This is for Daniel Carter, she said as she fired a full spread of quantum torpedoes at point-blank range. The flagship exploded in a shower of crystal fragments and superheated gas. The remaining Council ships began to retreat, but the human fleet was faster. None of them escaped. Within 2 hours, the entire Council fleet was destroyed. The Kepler station, a massive crystal structure that had served as the Council's border fortress for centuries, was in human hands. Morrison's forces had taken the station with minimal losses, thanks to their superior technology and tactics. Admiral, Captain Mitchell reported, we're receiving surrender signals from the station. They're asking for terms. Morrison's expression was cold. Terms? They didn't offer Daniel Carter any terms when they burned him alive. Tell them we don't negotiate with murderers. The assault on the station was swift and brutal. Human Marines, led by Major Pete Adams, stormed through the crystal corridors, capturing alien personnel and securing critical systems. The station's defenders were unprepared for the speed and aggression of the human attack. Station secured, Major Adams reported. We've captured over 300 Council personnel, including the station commander. What are your orders? Morrison thought about Daniel Carter, about the way he had died, about the message the Council had tried to send. Put them in the holding cells. They'll be tried for war crimes when this is over. News of the victory spread quickly through human space. The impossible had happened. Humanity had defeated a council fleet and captured one of their major installations. The galaxy was watching, and the message was clear. Humans were not the weak, primitive species the council had believed them to be, but Morrison knew this was only the beginning. The council would respond with greater force, probably bringing in their main fleets from the core worlds. The real war was just starting. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump, Morrison ordered. We're moving to the Centauri system. Intelligence reports another council fleet there, and we have a promise to keep. Captain Mitchell looked puzzled. What promise, Admiral? Morrison smiled grimly. President Stone promised the galaxy that we would show them what happens when someone kills a human ambassador. One battle isn't enough. We're going to keep fighting until every council ship is destroyed and every council world is under human control. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for their next target. Behind them, the wreckage of the council fleet drifted in space, a warning to any alien species that might be watching. Humanity had entered the Galactic War, and they were playing by their own rules. The council had wanted to send a message about power and authority. Instead, they had unleashed something they couldn't control. The humans were coming, and they would not stop until Daniel Carter's death was avenged and the galaxy was free from council oppression. The war had begun, and humanity intended to win it. General Pete Adams crouched behind a broken crystal wall on the planet Valdris, watching council soldiers retreat through the purple jungle. His human marines had been fighting for 3 days straight, pushing the alien defenders back toward their main base. The council forces were brave, but they fought like they were still living in the old days when wars were polite and formal. General, Sergeant Bill Harper called over the radio, the aliens are trying to set up another defensive line about 2 kilometers ahead. Should we wait for heavy weapons support? Adams smiled grimly. Negative, Sergeant. We keep pushing. These aliens still don't understand how humans fight a war. The war had been going on for 8 months now, and humanity was winning every battle. After the victory at Kepler Station, Admiral Morrison had led the fleet to 12 more systems, destroying council fleets and capturing their installations. But the real war was happening on planets like Valdris, where human ground forces were showing the galaxy what total war really meant. Adams signaled his troops to advance. The human soldiers moved through the alien jungle like ghosts, using tactics that no council species had ever seen before. They didn't march in straight lines or announce their attacks with formal challenges. They hit fast, hit hard, and disappeared. Before the enemy could respond, the council defenders were tall, insect-like creatures called the Nexari. They had served the council for thousands of years, believing that their military traditions made them superior warriors. They were learning that traditions meant nothing against human creativity and aggression. Contact front, called Corporal. Lisa Martinez, as her squad spotted Nexari soldiers setting up energy weapons behind crystal formations. 6 hostiles, defensive positions. Adams watched through his binoculars as his soldiers flanked the alien position. Instead of attacking head-on like the council expected, the humans split into 3 groups and hit the aliens from different directions at the same time. The Nexari never knew what hit them. Back in space, Admiral Morrison was coordinating attacks on 3 different systems simultaneously. His fleet had grown as more human ships arrived from the outer colonies, and several alien species had secretly joined the fight against the council. The Drakmari had provided an entire battle fleet, while the Thorian Republic had offered their advanced sensor technology. Admiral, Captain Steve Thompson reported from the bridge of the UES Devastator, the planet cracker bombs are ready for deployment. Dr. Webb says the new weapons can destroy an entire world if necessary. Morrison nodded slowly. The planet cracker. Bombs were humanity's ultimate weapon, designed to crack a planet's crust and destroy all life on the surface. He hoped he would never have to use them, but the Council needed to understand that humans would go to any length to win this war. Hold those weapons in reserve, Morrison ordered. We'll only use them if the Council refuses to surrender. Meanwhile, Major Linda Scott was running covert operations behind Council lines. Her intelligence teams had been infiltrating Council worlds for months, gathering information and recruiting allies among the oppressed species. What they had found was shocking. The Council had been enslaving and oppressing dozens of species for centuries. "The Helian Coalition wants to join our alliance," Linda reported during a secure communication with Earth. "They've been forced to provide slave labor for Council mining operations for 300 years. They're ready to rebel as soon as we give them weapons." President Stone listened to the reports from her war room on Earth. The conflict had spread across half the galaxy, with human forces advancing on dozens of fronts. But more importantly, the war had become something bigger than just revenge for Daniel Carter's death. It had become a war of liberation for every species that had suffered under Council rule. "How many species have joined our alliance?" President Stone asked. 47 so far," Linda replied. "And more are asking to join every day. The Council's authority is collapsing. Their own member species are starting to question why they follow orders from the core worlds." The turning point came when human forces reached the Andrian system, home to one of the Council's oldest member species. The Andrians had been part of the Council for 5,000 years, but they had grown tired of being treated as second-class citizens, while the Zephyrians and Kethmori made all the important decisions. Captain George Clark commanded the UES Phoenix as it entered Andrian space, expecting to fight another battle against Council loyalists. Instead, he found the entire Andrian fleet waiting for him with powered-down weapons. "Human vessels," came a transmission from the lead Andrian ship. "This is Admiral Trevmer of the Andrian Defense Force. We wish to discuss terms for joining your alliance against the Council." Clark was shocked. The Andrians were one of the most powerful species in Council space, with hundreds of ships and millions of soldiers. If they switched sides, it would change the entire war. "Admiral Trevmer," Clark replied. "I'm authorized to negotiate on behalf of the United Earth Federation." "What are your terms?" "We want freedom," the alien admiral said simply. "Freedom to govern ourselves, freedom to make our own decisions, freedom from Council oppression. In exchange, we offer our full military support against the core worlds." The negotiations took 3 days, but the result was a complete alliance between humanity and the Andrian Republic. Within weeks, similar deals were made with 6 other Council member species. The Council's empire was falling apart from within. Dr. Marcus Webb watched the reports from his laboratory on Mars, where he was developing even more advanced weapons for the human fleet. The quantum torpedoes had been just the beginning. His latest creation was a device that could disrupt the energy fields that held Council space stations together. "The field disruptor is ready for testing," he told Admiral Morrison during their weekly briefing. "One shot from this weapon will cause their crystal structures to collapse into dust." Morrison studied the technical specifications. "How many of these can you produce?" "We can have 50 units ready within a month," Webb replied. "Enough to destroy every major Council installation in their core systems." The Council tried to negotiate several times as their empire crumbled. High Arbiter Velthara sent messages to President Stone, offering to discuss peace terms and reparations for Daniel Carter's death. But Stone's response was always the same: total surrender or total destruction. "They had their chance for peace when Carter offered it to them," Stone told her advisors. "They chose war when they lit that flame. Now they get to see what human war really looks like." The final phase of the war began when human forces, supported by their alien allies, launched a massive assault on the Council's core systems. Admiral Morrison commanded over 1,000 ships, including vessels from 20 different species that had joined the human alliance. The Council's remaining fleets tried to make a last stand at the Nexus system, where their government was headquartered. But they were outnumbered, outgunned, and completely demoralized. Many Council ships surrendered without firing a shot, their crews no longer willing to die for leaders who had brought this destruction upon them. General Adams led the ground assault on Nexus Prime itself, the same station where Daniel Carter had been murdered. His Marines stormed through the crystal corridors, meeting little resistance from defenders who knew the war was already lost. "Target secured," Adams reported as his soldiers reached the main Council chamber. "We have control of the station." The chamber where Carter had been tried and executed was empty except for broken crystal formations and abandoned ceremonial items. The council members had fled, but they wouldn't get far. Human ships were waiting at every hyperspace route leading out of the system. As Adam stood in the chamber where his species' greatest diplomat had died, he felt a sense of completion. Daniel Carter had come here seeking peace and friendship. Instead, he had found death and betrayal. But his sacrifice had united humanity like nothing else could have. And now the galaxy would be free from council oppression forever. The war was nearly over, but the real work was just beginning. Humanity would have to build a new galactic government, one that respected the rights of all species and prevented any single group from dominating the others. It would be a massive challenge, but Adams was confident that his species was up to the task. After all, humans had proven that they could win wars. Now they would prove that they could win the peace as well. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as his massive fleet approached Nexus Prime for the final battle. Behind him, over 1,500 ships from 30 different species moved in perfect formation. The sight would have been impossible to imagine when Daniel Carter first arrived at this same station as a hopeful diplomat 2 years ago. "Admiral," Captain Sam Mitchell reported, "we're detecting heavy council defenses around the planet. At least 200 ships, plus the orbital defense platforms." Morrison studied the tactical display. The council had gathered every remaining loyal ship for this last stand. It was an impressive force, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. The aliens had learned nothing from their defeats. They were still trying to fight a traditional war against an enemy that had thrown out all the old rules. "Signal the fleet," Morrison ordered. "All ships prepare for a final assault. Today we end this war and free the galaxy from council oppression." On the planet's surface, High Arbiter Velthara stood in the council's emergency command center, her crystal body flickering with desperate energy. Around her, the few remaining council members tried to coordinate their defenses. The Kethmori telepaths were sending mental commands to their ships, while the insect-like Nexari prepared their ground forces for invasion. "The human fleet is massive," reported Admiral Zethkal of the Nexari Defense Force. "Our census show over 1,000 enemy vessels, including ships from species we thought were loyal to the Council." Velthara's glow turned angry red. "Traitors and rebels, all of them. The humans have poisoned their minds with promises of freedom. Do they not understand that the Council has maintained galactic peace for millennia?" "Perhaps," said a Kethmori. "Elder, its tentacles waving nervously, we should consider negotiating with the humans. Their leader, this President Stone, might be willing to discuss terms." "Never," Velthara snapped. "The Council does not negotiate with terrorists and murderers. We will fight to the last ship, the last soldier, the last breath." What she didn't know was that several Council species were already secretly negotiating surrender with human intelligence officers. The war had shown them what life could be like without Council oppression, and they wanted no part of this final battle. The space battle began at dawn, Nexus Prime time. Morrison's fleet attacked from 3 directions simultaneously, using the same tactics that had worked so well throughout the war. The human ships, supported by their alien allies, tore through the Council's defensive formations like paper. Captain George Clark piloted the UES Phoenix in a daring attack run against the orbital defense platforms. His ship's new shield technology made it nearly invulnerable to the Council's energy weapons, while his quantum torpedoes destroyed platform after platform with devastating efficiency. "This is Phoenix to all attack wings," Clark announced over the radio. "Defense grid is down. Repeat, orbital defenses are neutralized. Ground assault teams are clear to proceed." On the planet's surface, General Pete Adams led the largest invasion force in human history. Over 200,000 soldiers from a dozen different species stormed the crystal cities of Nexus Prime, meeting fierce resistance from Council loyalists, but finding unexpected support from local populations who had grown tired of Council rule. The fighting was intense but brief. Council forces were disciplined and brave, but they were completely unprepared for the speed and coordination of the Allied assault. Human Marines fought alongside Drakmari warriors and Andrian soldiers, all united in their determination to end Council tyranny forever. General Adams, Major Linda Scott reported from her intelligence unit, we've located the main Council command center. High Arbiter Velthara and the remaining Council leaders are holed up in the central crystal spire. Adams studied the tactical map of the city. The spire was heavily defended, with energy shields and automated weapons protecting the approaches. A direct assault would be costly in both time and lives. What about Dr. Webb's field disruptor? Adams asked, can we use it to collapse their defenses? Commander Julie Martin, who was coordinating the technical support teams, checked her instruments. The disruptor is in range. One shot should bring down their shields and destabilize the entire structure. Adams nodded grimly. Do it, it's time to end this. The field disruptor fired a single, brilliant beam of energy that struck the central spire. The crystal structure, which had stood for thousands of years as a symbol of council power, began to crack and crumble. The energy shields failed, the automated weapons went offline, and huge chunks of crystal crashed to the ground. All units move in, Adams ordered. Take the council alive if possible. They need to face trial for their crimes. The assault on the command center was swift but careful. Adams wanted the council leaders captured, not killed. They would face justice for Daniel Carter's murder and for centuries of oppression against dozens of species. High Arbiter Velthara was found in the deepest part of the command center, trying to activate what appeared to be a massive weapon. Dr. Alan Foster, who had survived Carter's diplomatic mission and joined the invasion force, recognized the device immediately. General, Foster called out urgently, that's a planetary destruction device. If she activates it, it will destroy this entire system. Adams moved quickly, his soldiers surrounding the crystalline being before she could complete the activation. Sequence. Velthara's body flared with desperate light as she realized her defeat. You have doomed the galaxy, she said, her voice like breaking glass. Without the Council's guidance, there will be chaos, war, destruction. You humans understand. Nothing of leadership or peace. We understand justice, Adams replied. Something you never learned. The capture of the Council leadership marked the end of organized resistance. Across the galaxy, the remaining Council forces surrendered or simply abandoned their posts. The war that had begun with Daniel Carter's execution was finally over, President Rachel Stone arrived on Nexus Prime 3 days later aboard the diplomatic vessel UES Daniel Carter. She walked through the same corridors where humanity's first ambassador had been tried and executed, but now she came as the leader of a victorious alliance that had liberated half the galaxy. The peace conference was held in the same chamber where Carter had died. Representatives from over 60 species gathered to discuss the formation of a new galactic government. The contrast with Carter's trial could not have been greater, where there had been oppression and arrogance. Now there was hope and cooperation. 2 years ago, President Stone said as she addressed the assembly, Ambassador Daniel Carter came to this station seeking peace and friendship between our peoples. He was murdered for his efforts, burned alive as a warning to any species that might dare to challenge Council authority. She paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of beings from dozens of worlds. Today we gather not as subjects and rulers, but as equals. The new Galactic Alliance will be built on principles that Daniel Carter would have approved of: freedom, justice, and respect for all species. The vote to establish the new government was unanimous. The Galactic Alliance would have a democratic council where every species had a voice, regardless of their size or technological level. There would be no more ruling classes, no more oppressed peoples, no more executions for political crimes. High Arbiter Velthara and the surviving council leaders were tried for war crimes and crimes against humanity. The evidence was overwhelming. Not just Carter's execution, but centuries of oppression, slavery, and murder. They were sentenced to life imprisonment on a penal colony far from any inhabited worlds. 6 months later, President Stone stood in Arlington Cemetery on Earth, Speaking at the dedication of a monument to Daniel Carter, a simple stone marker bore his name, his dates of service, and a single line: "He came in peace, he died with honor, his sacrifice freed the galaxy." Daniel Carter was a diplomat, not a soldier, Stone said to the crowd of mourners and dignitaries. He believed in the power of words, not weapons. But sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to fight for it. His death united humanity and showed the galaxy that some things are worth any sacrifice. She looked up at the stars where human ships now patrolled trade routes that had once been controlled by council forces. The galaxy is free because one man was willing to die for his principles. We will never forget that sacrifice, and we will never allow tyranny to rise again. As the ceremony ended, Admiral Morrison approached the monument and placed a small object at its base, a piece of crystal from the ruins of the Council chamber on Nexus Prime. It would serve as a reminder that even the most powerful empires could fall when they forgot the value of justice and freedom. The war was over, but Daniel Carter's legacy would live on in the free galaxy his death had made possible. Humanity had proven that they could fight when necessary, but more importantly, they had proven that they could build something better from the ashes of tyranny. The stars belonged to everyone now, and they would remain free as long as people remembered the price that freedom had cost.